Hello, today we'll be talking about Peter Wollen's Modern Times, Cinema, Americanism, and the Robot. So first, who is Peter Wollen? Peter Wollen was a British film theorist, critic, and filmmaker who had a big influence on how we study and understand cinema and culture. What made him stand out is that, unlike other philosophers, he actually made films himself. This gave his writing a different perspective since he kind of understood what filmmaking is from the inside out. His most influential book, Signs and Meaning in the Cinema, was published in 1969. This book helped establish a whole new way of studying film by drawing on ideas like Marxism, semiotics, and psychoanalysis. This placed him at the heart of what became known as screen theory, a movement that transformed film studies in Britain during the 1970s. But by the time he wrote Raiding the Icebox in 1993, which is the text we'll be looking at today, his interest had gone beyond cinema, and he started to focus on ideas like fashion, art, and modern culture. What made this book particularly interesting is that Wollen doesn't look at these ideas that I mentioned before separately. He treats cinema, fashion, and art all being a part of one thing in a bigger story. And he treats all three of these ideas in the same way when reflecting against how modern life was shaped by industrial revolution and technology. So, the chapter we'll be looking at is called Modern Times, Cinema, Americanism, the Robot. Wollen looks at three connected ideas: the rise of the machine age in the early 20th century, the spread of American industrial culture across the world, and the robot as a defining symbol of what this world does to human beings. Wollen's main argument is that Fordism, the system of mass production created by Henry Ford, didn't just change how factories worked. It changed how people lived, how they thought, how they related to art, and ultimately how they saw themselves as people. To really understand what Wollen means by this, it helps to understand what Fordism was. Henry Ford didn't just invent a way to produce more shoes or build cars quicker. He invented a whole new relationship between human beings and work. On his assembly lines, every single movement was planned, timed, and repeated endlessly. The worker wasn't there to think or to create. They were really just there to perform one small mechanical task over and over again throughout the day. Wollen's argument is that this way of organizing work didn't just stay inside the factory walls, but it slowly spread into every part of modern life. And this is a common idea running through the whole chapter. So, Wollen starts by showing how Americanism spread across Europe in the 1920s, almost like a new religion. Artists, philosophers, and architects all looked to America as a model of what modern life should look like. It's worth stopping to realize that it may seem strange for us to think looking towards America for modern times may be weird considering the world we live in, but at this time, the idea of efficiency, speed, mass production, modern technology, it all felt like the future. So people were really trying to bring these ideas into their own cultures and their own cities so they could become as powerful and as productive as America was. Wollen also uses ideas from Italian philosopher Gramsci, who argued that Fordism wasn't just an economic system, it was a whole way of life. It changed people's daily habits, their bodies, and even their personal and sexual lives to create a kind of efficient factory worker. What Gramsci understood, and what Wollen finds so useful, is that a system of production eventually becomes a system of living. You can't just work like a machine all day. The workers and employees began to think like a machine. Then Wollen looks at how culture during this time responded to the rise of machines by making the robot a powerful symbol. In plays and films, the robot became a way of asking a deep question. If the machine can do everything a human does, what's left of the human? This question was really clear, but it made people very uncomfortable, and you can see this discomfort playing out in art and films during this period. Some popular works Wollen mentions are Sapek's RUR, Huxley's Brave New World, and Lang's Metropolis. Each of these works imagines a world where the line between humans and machine became very blurred, and in each case the result was not a happy one. The female robot in Metropolis is really important since she captured all the concerns people had in this era, regarding technology, sexuality, and control being in one figure. She's seductive but dangerous, human in appearance but mechanical in nature. And for Wollen, this is very contradicting because she represents the fear that modernity was producing a new kind of human being, one that looked real and looked just like us, but it was hollow. There was nothing inside, no feeling, no soul. Wollen also refers to the philosopher Walter Benjamin, who wrote a famous essay called The Work of Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction. Benjamin's argument is that when images can be copied and distributed on a mass scale, it completely changes the relationship between the art and its audience. Before mechanical reproduction, a painting or sculpture had what Benjamin called aura. It was different, unique. It existed in one place, and seeing it meant that your presence there was irreplaceable. But once you can copy paste images infinitely and send it everywhere, it kind of takes this sense of uniqueness away. This is relevant to Wollen's ideas since he says that films could either be a distraction that keep people passive, or it could wake people up and make them think differently about the world. Cinema is a perfect example of Benjamin's argument. A film, sorry, excuse me. A film is by definition, a copy, something reproduced and distributed to mass audiences. The question Wollen is asking here is whether that mass production makes people more aware of the world around them, or just keeps them distracted while the machine keeps running. The last thing Wollen talks about is how Fordism eventually would give way to something new. Electronic media, computers, and digital images. But even as technology changes, Wollen argues that the same question he asked at the beginning of the chapter regarding human purpose is still unanswered. The machine has evolved, but the worries about how it affects human meaning is still very common. If anything, Wollen suggests that the shift to digital and electronic media makes the question even harder to answer, because now the machine doesn't just reorganize our work and produce our entertainment, it's really integrated into our lives. What Wollen is asking is, what does it mean to be a human in a world built around the machine? He shows us that this question didn't just appear in factories. We saw it in cinema, art, architecture, and eventually the world we live in today. And I think it makes this chapter so relevant because even though this was written in 1993, we're still living inside the same question. Every time we talk about artificial intelligence, social media, screens replacing human connection, we're asking what Wollen and other philosophers wrote about 100 years ago. The machine keeps changing, technology keeps evolving, but we have still not answered these questions. And I just want you to think about that. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed.